So today topic will be what our family Pesach tradition, how do we do it before, how do we do it now? So who wants to start, guys? I can start if you want me to.
Go for it. Go for it.
All right, my Pesach tradition. As you know, I was born in Russia, lived in Russia until I was 25, left at 25 to America, spent 37 years in America. So 4 years, 4.5, almost 5 years ago, I made Aliyah. And progressively, I became more observant, if you will. When I was in Russia until age 25, all I know is my mother would get matzah somewhere, and it was always s'more matzah. It wasn't like so if you really have trouble to find matzah, might as well find the real McCoy, so to speak. So it was smuggled to Russia somehow or baked somewhere. I don't know, but I remember we get matzah, and I didn't know why we're eating it. I know it's a Pesach. What was the occasion? That's what we do. So without really knowing much. And then, and other Jews in Russia did similar things. And I would say 95% of Russian Jews probably did similar to I. We're all proud to be Jewish, but we didn't know why. We didn't know what it means. And why we eat matzah, we also didn't know, but we ate it when we could find it. And then when I came to America, and eventually married everything else, we started, my wife grew up knowing, my wife is American Jew, so she knows tradition. So we started to observe it. And then, of course, then we have a typical search for matzah at home. We go with a candle. By then, our kids were, grown up, and grandkids would come over. So we will do, I guess, traditional American Pesach when we search for the chametz, and we'll clean the house. And then a family will come and will tell the Pesach story, read Haggadah, drink wine, eat matzah, and then the next couple of days basically followed as a typical Americans did. Now we came here, it's the two of us, my wife and I. I have some cousins here, but my cousins, most of my family here are not observant. The typical Russian non-observant Jews, they don't really, they probably have a matzah for home, but on Pesach, they probably go to the beach or whatever else they do. So my wife and I usually get together ourselves, and we just recite the story. A couple of times, I invited some other people. I invited my family, a couple of my cousins, and they didn't know much about it, but I explained what we do. We open up Haggadah, and we just went through this, and I get basic explanation. This is what happened, how many thousand years ago, the story of Exodus, and they know a little bit. Living in Israel, they kind of know slightly about it, and that's basically kind of in brief my recollections of my traditions.
We always had a Seder night. Of course, in the diaspora, you have two, just to make life difficult for the mother of the house. I wasn't brought up in a particularly Orthodox atmosphere, but we were Jewish. My mother would make noodles that were Pesach. She would make egg noodles from eggs, turn them into strings. I don't know how she worked the magic, and then dried them on a tea towel over the back of a chair. So my early memories of preparing for Pesach are watching the noodles dry for the chicken soup. And then when we were married, we always had a Seder in our home, and we'd have whichever members of the family would choose to come over. And then when the children grew up, at last, we can go to them and have a Seder with them, but it doesn't quite work like that, does it? They still come. They're coming to us this year. Our daughter and her family in Israel are coming to stay with us over Seder night.
Where do they live, John?
They live in Mitzpeh Ramon.
Wow, Mitzpeh Ramon. I'm going there tomorrow.
Yeah. And
nice place.
I think alternate years, it's either Makatunim in Modin or we do the Seder. But the family from Modin, well, they're getting a bit older now and not face the long journey and so forth. So they're just staying at home. So we're just going to have a total of 7, I think, at our table, unless we find a guest from somewhere.
So it would be you, your wife, your daughter with a husband, and what, 3 kids?
And 3 children.
Okay.
3 children. So the youngest one is the one who's going to be back mitzvah next month.
Wow.
Hello.
Okay, Mazel Tov. Okay, terrific. So how do you feel different somehow, spiritual aspect or a physical aspect, doing it here in Israel versus in England?
It's easier in Israel because you only have one day. One Seder.
I agree.
It's a lot easier. But it's going to be interesting at the end because it ends on a Friday night, doesn't it? And then the Saturday is no longer Pesah, but you can't do anything because it's Shabbat. So, I'm not quite sure. I assume you have to have make motzi over matzos as usual.
I think so.
Yes.
And probably for Shabbat, we'll keep on eating matzahs, right?
You can eat Sephardi food.
You can eat rice?
You can. Right.
You could buy it and keep it like separate on the side somewhere and not eat it during Pesach. It's not actually chametz, and then you can eat it on Shabbos.
Right. But it's the usual balagan. Everything's being turned out of cupboards. We can never find where our crockery and cutlery is because we put it away, getting ready for Pesach. Now we've got to remember which room we put it in, where the milk bowls are, and where the meat cutlery is, and so on. And so it's exhausting and frustrating, but it's always good fun, isn't it?
Yes.
Pesach. Plus, we had to get a new washing machine, so that just made life interesting.
Cool.
Wow.
So,
Okay.
That's the usual.
How long have you been in Israel, John?
10 years. 2012. March 2012. So exactly 10 years.
Wow. Okay. Longer than me.
Still struggling to learn over it.
Yeah. Pesach traditions. I don't even know where to. Usually start cleaning. Well, growing up, we started cleaning the house around Purim time is when we started cleaning. And so my father was a rabbi in Brighton, England. So we had 2 very big seders packed with lots of standing room only. Different years we did different things. I remember one time when since there's 2 Seder nights, one night we had with just the family, and one night we had with guests. But most times I think we just had guests both night. Very very packed.
Hi, Ruven.
Hello.
Yeah, and we would sit and discuss until the wee hours of the morning, till like 2 o'clock or something. I remember finishing. As a kid. We obviously do it very, very strict. We don't have anything from store-bought except for wine and matzah. And all the rest of the stuff is just fresh produce, or chicken or meat or whatever. And good fun.
Menachem, let me ask this question. You mentioned till 2 o'clock. I remember from Atlanta days, we used to go sometimes to our rabbi's house. It's Orthodox. We went to Ariel Orthodox Synagogue. And in our house, when we do Pesach, it was maybe till shortly after midnight or something like that. But in the rabbi's house, they would sit till 4 o'clock, like 5 o'clock in the morning, and it was still going. But my question is, are afikomen supposed to be eaten before midnight, right?
Yeah.
So if you're supposed to eat afikomen at midnight, how can the Seder go until 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning?
Okay, first of all, it's the Afikomen, but the Seder still lots of things to do after that. Second of all, at least in Chutz La'aretz, it's only the first night that you have to eat Afikomen before Chatzos Halayla. So the rest of the year, the second night you can go on as long as you like. You don't have to eat Afikomen by a set time. So it's usually the second night went on a lot longer than the first night.
Maybe that's the second night I'm thinking.
In Israel, we only have one, so we have to do it quicker. But yeah, after you eat Afikomen, you can still, there's a whole halal, there's like, you can still talk, you can still sing, you can, lots of things to do.
But it also means your dinner, you have to start your dinner like at 10 o'clock or something, because to finish dinner, to eat. So that means the storytelling actually in the beginning is relatively short, right?
Yeah, what I've noticed that when it's with, you got kids at the table, then you've got to do a whole completely different, because the kids want to eat, the kids are hungry. Well, what we do now is we feed them before the Seder, and they just fall asleep whenever they fall asleep. But yeah, it's definitely different when the kids are older, kids are younger. Yeah.
Interesting
question, Mendy, is always when in the States, it was always tradition, you try to finish the first Seder by midnight, and the second one can go till the sun comes up. Minhag for Israel, we only have one Seder.
Yeah, I think that when it's in Israel, we have one Seder, then we go till like the first night in the rest of the world, we have to eat the Afikomen before midnight. Well, before Chatzos Halayla.
But now I'm thinking, it made me think, I remember in my rabbi's days when we were invited to his house, whether the first night or the second night. I think sometimes we were invited at the first night, and even the first night, they kept going till like 4 o'clock in the morning. In fact, our rabbi was notorious to say, "Oh, you've been to rabbi for Seder? What time did you guys come home? At 7?" So it was known to be really long Seders.
But when did they?
About Shacharit in the shul? That goes ahead remorselessly, whether you're there or not. You just go to for an hour or so, or just go straight on into
No, look. You have a few times in the Jewish calendar where you go to sleep. Shavuos by night. You go to sleep at 4 o'clock in the morning, and the last night of Sukkot, they also stay. Some people stay up. Even the last night of Pesach as well. Some people stay up the whole night as well. So, or Yom Kippur or Rosh Hashanah, some people try to sleep minimally. So, yeah, you just truck. You just.
Okay.
You just get up and you go, and you sleep the whole afternoon.
So, Ruven,
I don't know about you,
family
John,
doing?
but I find with my age, staying up all night isn't as much fun as it used to be.
No.
Yeah, I agree. I'm with you.
You mean to tell us when you get older, it will change?
Changes a little bit, just a little.
No, you're young now. So as you get older, like 30 years from now or something, then
Somebody said once that old is 10 years older than you are. So I just heard talk by the Rebbe. He said they were talking, somebody asked them about retirement. He said that word's not in my vocabulary. And he said, how old you are isn't what it says in your passport. It's how old you feel and your attitude. So.
That's a good attitude. That's good thing to look at things. Yeah. So
Well, no, really, I think your attitude makes a difference. An interesting psychological study was done, which I read, where they took 2 groups of college students, and one, they gave them something to read that was sort of upbeat and youthful, and the second one, it was something about old people and getting ill, and then they measured how long it took them to walk to the elevator. The people who read about old people walked slower than the people who read
the power of
more
persuasion.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Just that little bit,
Well,
can
isn't
affect
one of the signs of depression when people, or if people are depressed, they tend to sleep a lot more?
Yeah, or they sleep less. It depends.
Yeah.
A typical sign is waking up 3 or 4 in the morning, you can't get back to sleep, you know. Ironically, is sometimes sleep deprivation for a couple of days in a row will actually significantly improve a depressed mood. We're not really sure how that works.
Well, I always thought, go ahead, man.
No, I just think it's interesting. I've never heard of that.
I said,
Yeah,
I was always under
You can't
impression,
use it long term though.
I was always under impression that the religious, quote unquote, religious people are usually very upbeat, no depression, no anxiety, like, because I figure if people who really like like Robert Eliyash or Moshe Feinstein, all these guys, they never have any depression, any anxiety, nothing, because I thought in their view is somebody very, very observant, very religious. I'm under God. If that happens, God wants it. I'm happy. If that happens, God wants it. I'm happy. No worries. And that's
The
what I thought.
reality is though, I mean, the Rebbe Rashab suffered from depression. Rabbi Nachman, who's, really upbeat in his writings, he suffered from depression. I mean, it's
Well, how is it possible?
It's not
Rabbi
unheard
Nachman
of
is having
for
depression.
people.
How is it possible?
Well, we look. I think in general, I'm just a thought on this is that if it's depends how you define depression or what the cause is, but if someone's born with their brain wired in a certain way, then that it is what it is. You have to learn how to live with it. It's not necessarily something you can actually physically change. It's just
yeah.
but it could also be
I mean,
active.
Being active, exercising, thinking positively can help it, but
I
can
read,
tell
I
you,
know,
it's
I know
hard for people who haven't experienced it. See, it runs in my family, and I've suffered from it, so it's hard to explain. I explain to people not like I'm feeling sad and so terrible, and no, it's just a lack of energy. It's almost sometimes it hits you so hard. It's almost like having a migraine. You're trying to get your brain working and it just doesn't want to work. And you can think, well, God loves me. Everything is okay. I know everything goes all right, but I just have to lie down for half an hour. It's hard to explain.
but that's maybe different. You guys read it this week or previous week or 2 weeks ago, I forgot, in Torah Tidbits. I actually read an amazing article about maybe Rav Soloveitchik even, I forget, some big that had actually anxieties, was worried. He had some health issues. He was worried. Oh, I guess I'm gonna last much longer. What's going on here? He was actually had this, and then it talks about how he overcame it, but he had these thoughts. So I mean, I find that even big people like those Soloveitchik, Eliashim, I don't know, seem to be. But it's one thing if somebody just wired, like you said, Menachem from birth, and another thing is like I ride bikes with Rob, and like always, and Rob is a doctor. Every time I'm back here, Rob, my shoulder hurts a little bit. What do you think it is? And don't worry, it's a muscle a little bit. What about this? What about, oh, geez, maybe should I check with cardiologist? What's going on here? And I'm the impression, and I am, what do you call it? The people who look into themselves too much. There's a word for hypochondriac. Is this heart here? Is this a muscle here? Is this here? Is this? My wife says, knock it off already. But I'm asking myself, what is with my faith? Am I religious? Do I believe in God or not? If every second I'm questioning this and this, my faith is not strong enough. I'm questioning the foundation of my belief. This is not a pathological thing that from childhood I was worried. I was taking pills for anxiety. I started to develop when I got to a younger age, or let's say after 60 or something. So it's something to do as you're getting older and you get more physical symptoms. Some people say that, no, Rabbi, you live with that to 120. And some people, myself, just keep asking, what's this, what's this? So how do you reconcile this with a belief in God? Huh?
Yeah.
How old was your father when your father passed away?
Well, my mother passed away, she was 94.
Oh, it's good. The Talmud says a man, when he gets within 5 years of the age his father died, he should worry. And if he lives 5 years after the age his father died, he can stop worrying.
If he lives 5 ages after, my friend Victor Menachem, you met Victor. Victor says, listen, if you live past 50, that means you probably will live to 120. If you made it after 50, any problems usually happen before 50. After that, you're not free. And I think that's what you're saying, right? If you go to a certain age and past it, that's it, nothing to worry about.
That's good to know. It's
Well,
good to know. I'm
kid-
counting.
My kids would always bother me with little complaints, and my standard answer was, "Don't worry, you won't die." But they wanted sympathy. I think if you gave it the office, you need to give it home or something like that. But
You're taking notes, Menachem, right?
I'm doodling.
No, you're taking notes from what you were saying because
Oh yes, I am.
you're
Yes,
the
yeah,
spring
definitely.
chicken comparing to
one of
us.
my residents said she was always being pestered at. I was teaching at a family medicine program, and she said at parties people always pester her. What do you think this is, that is? And she said she got people to stop bothering her. I said, how? She always said, oh, it's cancer. Cancer for sure. And people stopped asking her. I couldn't get away with it, it's like wearing certain kind of jewelry, just.
I used to find when I was advising patients on taking treatment to prolong their life, treatment for blood pressure, treatment for cholesterol, I would say to them, look, the first thing is this treatment will not stop you dying. Think about that. All right? It may postpone the event, but that's only a probability. You may be unfortunate enough to have a heart attack tomorrow, or you may live to 90 or 100 years. If you take this treatment, you're more likely to live a long life. But you won't feel any better for taking the treatment, because the treatment doesn't treat any illness you've got. It merely treats your body chemistry. Taking anti-cholesterol pills doesn't make you feel bright and cheerful. It should have no effect whatsoever on your sense of well-being. And I don't guarantee it works, because in a certain number of people, it's ineffective. And you have to go on taking it every day for the rest of your life. Now go away and think about it. Because
well, it's more like it's like wearing a seatbelt, You probably could go without wearing a seatbelt most of your life, but when the time comes, you wish you'd had it on.
Yes, it's all a matter of probabilities, and that's one of the hardest things to get across to people. The balance of probabilities. What's the probability that the Earth will be destroyed by an asteroid? Extremely small, but people worry about it.
Yeah.
What's the probability?
Just read about today. Next year, there's 5 asteroids heading to Earth.
Yes, and you can't do anything about it. So there's no point in worrying about something you can't change. And relative probabilities like the tragedy of air accidents, dying in an air crash, it's extremely small, vanishingly small, compared with the risk of walking across the road to get a loaf of bread.
Or just driving someplace. Yeah, statistically, you're 6 times more likely to die for mile per mile in a car than you are in a plane crash, but going the same distance.
I would have thought it was even more likely.
That's interesting what you said, John. Actually, I never heard that analogy you did, but I really like what you said. I already feel better with my anxieties by hearing what you just said. And I also want to add something. My doctor in Atlanta, when we used to live there, I'll go to him and I'll say, this hurts. Like he says, listen, I can give you the medicine for that. You have a little pain. It's nothing serious, but I can give you medicine for that. And I said, will it help me? He says, listen, I tell you this. If you don't take the medicine, no, he said, if you take the medicine, it probably will go away in about 2 weeks. And if you do take the medicine, it will go away in 14 days.
That's right.
Yeah, but I understand what John's saying. You have to help tailor the patient's expectations. It's not to expect too much. I mean, even people with pain. One pain specialist talked to us and said, he always tells patients, I'm not going to completely relieve your pain. My goal is to make it tolerable. If I try to completely relieve it, I'm going to create more problems for you than the pain. So, people have to learn to balance and live with certain amount of discomfort. But
I used to find when I had my migraines when I was younger, and they were pretty unpleasant. But I knew that they didn't last forever, a day at the most. And sometimes I'd have to crash out, and there's nothing you could take to relieve the pain in those days. But when it got better, it got completely better by itself, and you felt completely normal. That's why I knew it wasn't anything serious, because serious disease doesn't go away. If you actually feel a sort of rebound effect, feel bright and breezy afterwards, it's gone until the next time it comes back. But I knew that it was not life-threatening. And what's the phrase? That even in the darkest times, this too shall pass.
Amen. How about that's good to hear.
But it did give me a lot of sympathy for patients who complained of pain, because having experienced it yourself, you know that you can't function when you're experiencing pain. It takes over your life. So you do need to ameliorate it. And that is one of our main jobs, even if we can't cure everybody, try and relieve their pain.
To help as much as possible, yeah.
So are you a fan of medical marijuana?
Well, I've read about it. I never prescribed it myself, but we weren't allowed to in my day. I'm not entirely convinced. I'm a bit skeptical.
it was just a large study reported in JAMA. Just a large study in JAMA. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. We had a neighbor who lived in the flat above us. We were on the ground floor, and she was quite eccentric and obsessed with feeding the birds from her first floor window. And she would put out birdseed for them. And the birdseed would drop down to our little plot of earth and germinate and sprout. And so we have a variety of weeds. One day a police officer came on some unconnected matter, and he looked at the garden and he said, "Did you know that's cannabis, doctor? The hemp seeds that she was feeding the birds had germinated, and I was growing cannabis in my front garden." I didn't know.
A bonus.
So I think it to him, and he just shrugged.
So where did she get them from? I didn't realize you could buy them in the UK.
Big birdseed from the shop.
Birdseed had
Drug that I hope the drugs, the drug reps would come around and give us samples.
Well, I think that everything that we have, my personal non-medical theory is that God gave us so much stuff that I would imagine that at one time I was interested in so-called Rife technology. I don't know if you guys know Rife technology. Dr. Rife in 1930s, he was trying to cure cancer, and he would do a radiation special like carrier frequency with ultraviolet frequencies that would do all sorts of things. And I actually did experiment in my laboratory in Atlanta. I put together a whole thing, and I was radiated paramecium, and I was microfilming it, and I was doing all sorts of things. And I came to a conclusion that's all twinkle, twinkle, little star. It doesn't do much of that. But I was interested in this. But I thought that you would imagine there will be institutes, a huge medical facility doing research in a natural curing. For example, who knows if I don't take 20 grams of peas with 7 grams of strawberry and I put like 20 grams of butter and mix it and heat it up to 100 degrees and cool it and then drink it, it might cure kidney stones. And if instead of 40 grams of peas, I put 20 grams of peas, now it will cure cancer. There's so many combination, infinite number of combination. If you add to that frankincense, and if you add this to this in some proportions, infinite number, that is what God gave us, I think. And he says, study all these guys. And we, instead of saying, listen, we just might as well take aspirin and pop it in, and make me feel better. And I'm not saying there's no place for the conventional medical drugs, aspirins, Tylenol, whatever. It's place for that. But the other side, natural medicines like that, only is heard by some Chinese researchers that I would venture to guess doctors, like conventional doctors, would say that's the Obama-Meister stories. The truth is somewhere probably in the middle, but in my view, it's not enough of that natural study. I mean, how do I know the grass is growing outside my apartment? If it's regular grass, I mean, I see cats and dogs going eat this grass, but they don't feel good. They know intuitively how to heal themselves. Maybe if I take this grass and mix it with lilac and then add some honey, but not 2 spoons, but 3 or 1, it'll create a certain aspect that all of a sudden heal this. And I don't think we're doing enough of that. That's what I think God gave us.
Apparently, they've just built recently a robot that actually does that.
A
That can
robot?
test like thousands and thousands of different molecular structures and see how they interact with each other to decipher like
But,
what
but,
new medications.
it must be more than a robot. It must be a building 4 stories high with 100 doctors and scientists and engineers that collectively working on
Yeah, but
that
it
stuff.
has. I saw a picture of it. I have to find out what it's called. It's like it has like the dispensers, like I don't know, like 1,000 dispensers, and it's able to measure exactly what it's giving it to what, and keep track of everything, and to measure the results and everything.
But how does it know to begin with? How does it know to take, like, say, 2 spoons of honey and mix it with the radishes?
Some kind of AI or something to calculate, or like to figure out what may work, or not, I don't know, something like that. But apparently they're also scientists in the rainforest in Brazil. They're trying to find out as much as they can from the Aborigines, as the kind of medicines they use. And apparently a lot of new medications come from I don't know, new, but a lot of medications come from these plants they've discovered.
Well, it's good to hear.
You doctors know more than I would. Sorry?
The problem is to find the positive result in amongst the thousands, millions of negative results. Scientists don't like working on a field where there's no prospect of a success. They're human beings and they want some result. So they follow a proven path of experimentation using the scientific basis that they've got already. And pure research into the science of human and all creatures' biochemistry is still in its infancy. We know only a small amount of what we need to know. So just randomly testing this, that, or the other substance merely because it happens to grow in your backyard, it's not a cost-effective way of discovering new treatments for disease. The first thing is to discover what is causing the disease. I've always thought that the most interesting field of study is why, by and large, people, animals, stay healthy most of their lives. What is it about this balance of risks that the body is able to correct itself without you doing anything, just eating and drinking and working as normal for most of our lives?
It's pretty amazing.
Minor episodes. Now, it's not true of everybody, but it's true of enough people for there to be billions of human beings on the planet.
Wow, it's amazing. Yes.
In recent, towards the end of my career, people would always ask if I got sick. Why did I get ill, doctor? And in the last 5-6 years, my answer changed. I said, why were you healthy before?
Yes.
And they look at me like, what? And I said, health is a mystery and illness is a mystery. We never can get answers to these things, but they are it's mysterious. Yeah, the body is complex beyond our imagination. It's just, the more you study it, the more I mean, there was a series of medical animations done by Harvard showing what it looks like when in real time when the DNA is being replicated and read and unraveled, and this little enzyme that unravels the DNA is spinning, and some bacteria it spins 5,000 RPM, which is as fast as a jet engine. Like, it's mind-boggling. I mean, maybe I'll post a link to this video. Everybody should watch it just to have your mind
Yeah,
blown.
okay.
Like what goes on inside the
We'd
body.
like
of
to
a
see
guy.
that. That would be interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll post it. It's a very good site. It was actually created by a rabbi who had been maybe a physics or a biology major, and he tries to show how many miraculous things are present in the world. And I'll post the site. It's a very, very interesting site.
It'll be interesting to see. I just wonder how much the like spiritual focus, like when we pray and concentrate, how much I heard that stimulates. I mean, they measured, I think, people praying and the blood pressure drops, like let's say from 140/80 after the guy prays, it's like 120/70. So spiritual concentration
It's
has
a
effect on
meditative,
your chemistry.
meditative experience.
Yeah, they've done research on this with like monks and put the electrodes on their head and seen what happens when they meditate.
So it does have. It's all combination.
So YouTube, you can see all of this.
Gentlemen, we have a minute left, 1 minute and a half. It's a very interesting topic. We started from Pesach, exchange of Pesach stories. We talk about power of the positive thinking, and John presented it just have to be positive, and you live to 120 easily. And then also it's very interesting combination. And then we'll look forward to this link that Ruven will send. It was a DNA spinning at 5,000 RPM. What should we talk?
We have a dessert today? No dessert today?
If you guys, I know how you feel.
Lou?
Feel. What am I supposed to feel? I don't know how.
It's done in a minute.
How does that work?
You want to do homework?
I think Ruven is getting ready to do something else.
All right.
Cool. I'm game if you guys are.
How you want the guys to continue for a little bit longer, or should we do it next time? Or to vote? I'm okay if you want to.
I will have to leave now because I've got stuff to do. Preparing
Okay.
Pesah.
All right. Well, then
Yeah.
let's reconvene next Tuesday then, guys, at 8 o'clock
Okay.
usual time. Would that be all right? Any particular topic you think
Yeah.
during the week? Just
Bye-bye.
think about it. Bye bye, guys. Okay. Shabbat tov. Talk soon. Bye bye.